Hey guys, so we just started our first project, which is going to be this bowl. But whatever we're using, or whatever we're making, we're using this wood to store our projects. But this wood is also a tool for us in ceramics. So one of the things that it does is, obviously it stores stuff. It makes it easier to put everything on, wrap it up, move it around without smashing stuff. It's also can be a work surface, but it also helps us regulate the drying of our project. So we worked on this bowl last week. We smoothed the inside this press mold bowl. When it firmed up a bit, we smoothed the outside of it as well. But what's happening with this wooden board is we've been placing the clay on the wood. So the wood is actually sucking some of the moisture out of this and helping us to firm this up. When we work with clay projects, when we make stuff out of clay, one of the biggest things we want to realize in the beginning is that we're working with soft clay, and it's really hard to do fine things with soft clay. So we always say we want to rough stuff out in the beginning, get our general shapes and forms. And then we can and collect all of those when they're wet. Then when they've firmed up, we can start to kind of do things to them, clean them up, cut them, refine them. It's too hard to do those things when the clay is really soft, when it's fresh clay. So when we store stuff, in the beginning especially, we put it on the wood so that even when it's covered up, the wood is sucking some of the moisture out of it. If I left this unwrapped overnight, this would just be dried out. But if we set it on the wood and cover it, we can leave it under here for a couple days, and then the wood slowly sucks the moisture out of it. And when we come back to it, it's at a really nice state now. So this state, it's not the wet clay anymore. This state is now leather hard, it's called. So this is leather hard clay. This is when we want to start working further on our project. So we collect the pieces in general when they're really soft, wet clay, when they are really soft, wet clay, and then we wait until those pieces have firmed up. So they're on the wooden board like this initially, and then we cover them. You can see this is leather hard, so I can put a little pressure on this and it's not flexing, but I can squeeze this and it's still soft clay. So it's in the middle stage of, it's not soft clay, wet clay, but it's not bone dry clay or dried out clay. This leather hard state is where we want the clay to be, to start working on it further, to really cleaning it, adding things onto it, refining it, doing whatever. So this is where we start working. Now, having said that, we got to take care of this. We don't want this to dry out until we're done working on it. So we want this, at this stage, we probably want to get it off of the wood. So what you probably want to do now is put your plastic down on the wood when you're done, and then cover this up entirely, deflating the air out of the bag so that there's no air pockets in there when you wrap this up, and then it keeps drying out. What you can also do when you wrap these is give it a little bit of spray, like a small amount. If you overspray it and the water's dripping down the sides and there's a pool of water on the bag, what can actually happen is that can start to disintegrate. The clay sits in the water and starts to dissolve. So you can definitely overspray your pots. So you want to keep it at a minimum. If you don't have a spray bottle, you can flick water on it, or use a paintbrush to apply water to it, or get like a paper towel, even just dip it in water and just kind of roll it around, or a rag or whatever. So that's how we want to store our pots. When clay is bone dry, like these pieces right here, when the clay is bone dry, it's so fragile. So if I have this bone dry clay in my hands and I'm just squeezing it like this, it can just roll it around in my fingers. I can snap it. It's really, really fragile. So we want to be really careful with bone dry clay.